Is my screen available?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, now the PPT first slide is visible.
Yes, Agni, you can start, please. You're live on.
Okay.
Yes, they will.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. A very warm welcome to you all to CARE Ratings webinar on Power Discoms, fading into twilight after Uday. I am joined in by my colleagues Sudhir Kumar and Agni Mitrakar from CARE side. We also have two esteemed panel experts for today, both having a long experience of working in the power distribution sector. Agni. Our first guest today is Mr. Amal Sinha, who is the CEO of VSES Rajdhani Power Limited. A graduate from Delhi's prestigious SRCC, Mr. Sinha is a chartered and cost accountant with more than 33 years of experience in areas like power distribution business, corporate finance, strategy planning, budgetary and financial control, audits, regulatory affairs, and Indian accounting standards. After working with Escorts Limited for 15 years, Mr. Sinha joined VSES Rajdhani Power Limited, that is BRPL, in 2006 as the head of company's business process reengineering group. Thereafter, officiating as its CFO, overseeing areas of functional finance and accounts, legal and regulatory affairs. Subsequently, he was elevated as the Director of Finance, and since 2016, he has been the CEO of VRPL. Mr. Sinha, a very warm welcome to the webinar. Many thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Our second guest for today is Mr. Shubhadeep Sen, CFO of GUVNL. A BCom from the prestigious St. Xavier's College of Kolkata. Mr. Sen is a chartered and cost accountant with an added diploma in business finance from ICFAI. He has had more than 23 years of experience in the fields of finance, accounts, taxation, treasury management, and cost accounting. He started his career with the erstwhile Gujarat Electricity Board in 2003 and is currently the CFO and Managing Director FNA of GUVNL, the holding company for Gujarat's Genco, Transco, and the Discoms. Mr. Sen handles the entire financial management of the group, accounting and audit functions, taxation issues, etc. He is also a director on the board of Power Exchange India Limited, that is PXIL. Mr. Sen, welcome to the webinar and many thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Power distribution, arguably the most vital link in the power sector value chain, has been its weakest link as well. The Discoms have continued to reel under the burden of cost subsidies which have not been adequately funded by the state governments, thanks to their tardiness in resetting of tariffs. Multiple well-intended government initiatives to revive the sector have managed to alleviate the Discoms' woes at best temporarily, while not really presenting sustainable solutions. Even the Uday scheme, which promised to simultaneously address multiple objectives like improvement of operational efficiencies, reduction in the cost of power, and financial turnaround of the Discoms with state government facilitation, has not yielded the desired results. In our webinar today, we propose to present the key aggregate trends that we have observed during the Uday period, the current state of about 30 Discoms, the sector outlook for FY21, and the rating dispersion and migration for CARE-rated entities. Subsequently, in the panel discussion, Sudhir and I propose to gather some valuable insights from our esteemed panelists on the various issues confronting the power distribution sector. So I would give the presentation to you, Sudhir and Agni, for the rest of the part.
Thank you, Deval. Thank you for this introduction. Me and my colleague Agni would be taking the audience through the our presentation. These are the following discussion agenda which we thought would be of the interest to the audience. We will start with the background on the Discoms. As Deval pointed out that distribution companies are the penultimate part in the power value chain, and they originate the collection and liquidity for the entire power sector, and they are the crucial link between the generation companies, transmission, and the ultimate consumer. So they hold the collection box of the entire power sector. So that is the the main importance of the discoms. Next, Agni. Now the sector has been plagued by twin issues of cost coverage being low and AT&C which is on the higher side, and these two issues over the period have kind of affected the power discoms so much so that majority of the power discoms in the country are below subinvestment grade, and majority of them are loss making. And these two twin issues are very evident in terms of if we do the analysis of these discoms, what plagues these discoms. So these are the two issues which have been plaguing the discoms. Agni, can you move on to the next? Over the years, there have been multiple revival schemes in the power sector, and over the past two decades, it started with the Ahluwalia Committee recommendations in 2002-3, wherein the generation companies were built out. Thereafter, in 2012, FRP came in. 2015, Uday came in, and 20, the Atmanirbhar Bharat package in a way has come in. So most of the time, these schemes have kind of financial part they have addressed of the discom, but the core issues, the operational part still needs a lot of working to be done, and hence these scheme aim for more. Agni, next. Now Uday, among these four schemes clearly stands out because not only because of the size of the scheme, but also because apart from the financial turnaround, it also laid a lot of emphasis on improvement in the operational efficiency, reducing the cost of power, and ultimately instilling the kind of financial discipline among the state utilities. So much that the losses later on during the Uday period are absorbed by the state governments itself, which would instill confidence among the discoms. So these are the four pillars on which Uday rested. Next. So before we move on to the aggregate trends in power sector, I thought I will just take you through two slides wherein we would just present how Uday targets have been achieved or not achieved by the various discoms. And we have chosen 12 states, and we have these are the big 12 larger 12 states in terms of size, in terms of input energy which they have. So clearly the Gujarat and Maharashtra, both these discoms, they have got their targets achieved, and they also remain below 15%, which was the larger AT&C target given by the scheme. Other states, they have not performed relatively well. West Bengal has achieved. Punjab is also okay, but these Gujarat and Maharashtra stand out because they have got their targets well achieved, and that too below 15%. So this was with respect to the AT&C loss. Agni, next. In terms of ACS ARR gap, the other important and critical factor to evaluate any utility's performance, we have tried to show the Uday target versus the achievement. The Uday target was to be all entities to be profitable by the end of 2019, which was the end of the Uday period. And the graphs almost remain the same. The entities which were relatively better in terms of AT&C, they also tend to do better in terms of cost coverages also. So Gujarat, Haryana, Punjab, Maharashtra all have been better performance in terms of targets achieved. While there is a huge variation in terms of targets for Telangana, MP, Rajasthan, AP, Tamil Nadu due to under recovery of the fixed overheads, high overheads. Next, Agni. Now my colleague Agni would take you through the key aggregates in the key aggregate trends over the past 4 to 5 years on aggregate power discom. This will include all discoms, including private sector and public sector. Over to you, Agni.
Yeah, thank you, Sudhir. In my first slide, you can see that there's been a positive trend in the aggregate financial, as well evident with Sudhir explaining the financial and operational turnaround which Uday was aimed to achieve. In terms of the aggregate loss from the pre-Uday level of 55,000 crore in FY15, it has improved to 29,000 crore in FY18. So this was largely driven by the grants under Uday, which was routed through the PNL of many discoms during the period. If you see the quantum of the grants, it was almost 20,000 crore in FY18. The grant and regulatory income created this optic improvement, so as to, if I have to put the word in that way, see if the ACS ARR gap, which has improved from 0.58 rupees per unit pre-Uday level to 0.3 rupees per unit in FY18. Structurally, there was no change in the cost as shown by the violet trajectory representing the ACS ARR excluding the grant and the regulatory income component. Discoms at the same time has also benefited from the lower interest cost upon the conversion of the loans to equity. Net worth has also improved due to this. Although at an aggregate level, it remains negative. If I have to see the aggregate debt level, that has stabilized for a brief period. But however, with the ongoing capex initiatives, which I will be coming to the subsequent slides, we find that the debt has again started increasing from FY19 onwards. Higher power purchase cost, limited tariff hikes, high overheads has led to deterioration of the cost coverage in FY19, and hence aggregate loss has also increased if you see for FY19 figures. Now, if we have to see on other parameters for the financial and operational, we find that the gross energy sold and revenue has increased due to obviously due to higher demand, and another aspect was due to higher accounting of the units sold due to improved billing efficiency. The billing efficiency, which has increased marginally from 81% to 83 odd percent. However, the growth rate of the average unit realization was outpaced by the growth in power purchase cost on a per unit sold basis. This has led to lower recovery of power purchase cost through sales. One of the factor attributable is the inadequate or no tariff hike by the regulators in the recent past. You can also see that there is an increasing reliance on the tariff subsidy. In fact, in FY19, it is almost 18.5% of the revenue. The receipts has been around 94% of this tariff subsidy, which was getting booked in the past. However, in FY19, that this figure has significantly dropped to around 89%. And several high leveraged states were not able to release the entire subsidy amount booked during that period. For example, Andhra Pradesh, which actually registered a low minimum of around 21%, followed by Rajasthan, Karnataka, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh. So in some extent, that has hampered the collection efficiency also. The discoms at the aggregate level loses money at every unit of energy which they sell. In FY19, in fact, the loss figures per unit basis has returned to pre-Uday level. AT&C loss has improved in the last 5 years, around 370 bps through improvement in the system, strengthening various administrative measures which are the part of the Uday scheme. However, it continues to remain higher than the Uday committed levels. Collection efficiency has remained stagnant and marginally low at around 93% in FY19. The southern discoms, as I was mentioning, had witnessed decline in the collection efficiency, particularly AP and Telangana, because of their tariff subsidy getting realized at a later time. In this slide, I have shown the chart for the top 5 discoms in terms of their debt availed and the creditors outstanding as on March 31st, 2019. The discoms have been facing the issue of restricted access to bank lending to fund their capex requirement and also the dues from the various government departments and municipalities and which also then has subsequently led to the stretch in creditors. These restrictions from the lenders were due to low net worth, lower asset levels in books, funding of losses in the past. In terms of DISCOMs, which hold the chunk of the payments, payables, in fact, to the GENCOs, it has continuously increased in the past 3 years, except for MSEDCL, which has shown improvement. Few DISCOMs, although have shown a reduction in the debt levels, but the creditors have increased. So in terms of debt, the concentration has been with TANGEDCO, which accounts for 23% of the aggregate figure, followed by MSEDCL and PSPCL. TANGEDCO also leads in terms of the creditor outstanding, followed by Southern Telangana, MSEDCL, and PUVNL. Now, if I have to speak about the capex side, there has been a positivity, being the quantum of the spend over the last 3 years, and it has been higher than, in fact, the increase in the debt for the corresponding figure. But however, this significant amount of capex is still under CWIP, so the benefits would be reaped, and it would take some time before the network improvement actually happens. Impressive figure in terms of capex incurred has been posted by UP, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, MP, Karnataka, and which is a good sign given the high AT&C losses in these states. The southern states have also accounted for approximately 50% increase in the creditors and 24% of the capex. Additional to the capex is always a welcome move. However, this has also impacted the liquidity profile of the DISCOMs, because primarily if you see that there has been a substantial increase in the creditors and other current liabilities. Now I would hand over the baton to Sudhir so that he can cover the main analysis of the 30 DISCOMs of the 12 states, and along with the remaining topics of the presentation.
Thank you, Agni. Thank you for presenting us the key aggregate trends in the power sector over the last few years. From here onwards, I will take you through the current state of DISCOMs for the 30 companies. These are the companies which are emanating from 12 states. So we have just seen the top 12 states in terms of energy purchased, and then we have taken out the DISCOMs for that, and we have evaluated them on critical parameters in the their evaluation. Next. So the most important factor, as we have also discussed in the previous slides, was AT&C. Earlier we had shown you the performance vis-a-vis UDAY, but this is with respect to financial year 19 performance, and we have plotted the AT&C from the lowest to the highest, with median AT&C of India at around 22.04. So clearly from this chart it is evident that DISCOMs of North India and few agrarian DISCOMs of South India, they have the highest AT&C loss. And one interesting fact which I would take you through the next slide. Again, next. In terms of ACS ARR gap, you would find that the majority of the DISCOMs where ACS ARR is the issue, gap is the issue, they emanate largely from southern India. So North Indian DISCOMs, they are plagued by AT&C loss as one of the key issues in their dismal financial performance, while the southern DISCOMs, with few exceptions, they would have high AT&C, high ACS ARR gap. This is one notable observation which we had in this. Next. Tariff subsidy and related government support is also one of the important factor in terms of appraisal of any DISCOM. So in this slide, we have tried to show what is the kind of percentage of subsidy in the overall revenue from sale of power for DISCOM. And we have again, from lowest to the highest, we have tried to arrange. And these green bars which you see are those bars wherein the subsidy booked and received, they all were in the same year. While in the case of gray bars, maybe subsidy was booked in 1 year while it was received in subsequent years. So that is the difference. So clearly in this few of the Bangalore discoms, they continue to have higher reliance on tariff subsidy, and then and the other agrarian-based economies, utilities have got higher subsidy as a percentage of total revenue. Next, Agni. The government's ability to support the utility by subsidy is limited by their financial position. In this chart, we have tried to see what is the ability of government to support these discoms. We clearly see that the states in the northern India, which are particularly over leveraged, MP, AP, Rajasthan, UP, and Punjab, they have got relatively high outstanding liability as a percentage of GSDP, and it also raises a question mark on their ability to support incrementally the subsidy requirement. But one important observation was that despite the higher leverage, the North Indian states, there were good payment of tariff subsidy to the respective utilities, despite the higher leverage which they have. Next, Agni. In this graph, I have tried to show the leverage profile of the discoms, and since the leverage profile varies in a wide range, I have tried to show it in a logarithmic scale. If you see on the right side of it, the 2,62,000 crore is the top figure, while 1 crore is the minimum. Clearly, the Gujarat utilities, Mr. Shubhodeep Sen is there with us. He will take us through what they are up to in terms of managing their finances. They are least levered and among the top rated utility. And gradually, the utilities of UP, MP, TANGEDCO, they have got relatively higher debt than the median. TANGEDCO, PSPCL should be seen in the context of the fact that they both are generation distribution companies both. So their level of debt would be relatively higher vis-a-vis the other companies which are shown in this graph. But TANGEDCO, adjusted for generation company debt, still would have the highest level of debt in the balance sheet, which remains a concern. And next, Agni. Now, overdue creditors is one of the issues with most of the generation companies, and they are pretty much concerned about DISCOM's ability to pay. In this chart, we have tried to show over the past 2 years how the overdues towards the generating companies have built up for the utilities. Clearly, the alarming state of affairs is with Rajasthan, which is the top blue line, and followed by the Maharashtra, UP, and other states. One observation here is that after Q1, the growth has been flattish. That could also be attributable to some money being released in July from that Atmanirbhar Bharat package, easing the liquidity profile of the utilities, and ultimately the money is being liquidated from the payable side. Next, Agni. And now, earlier slides I had presented the performance of the states or the utilities on one or single parameter. In this slide, I have tried to show among the two critical parameters in utilities performance, AT&C loss and ACS. I have just plotted the aggregates of these states on these two axes, and as seen from the graph, all the, or majority rather, they are in the top right quadrant, indicating the sad state of affairs. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, Haryana, they are the so to say saving grace, and they have shown a relatively better performance. In the subsequent slide, I will show you apart from these two parameters, if we have to kind of see all the these 12 states from various other parameters which are also critical for their assessment, how do they perform on those scales? Again, next. So in this study, we had tried to place all the these 12 states on these 7 parameters, which in a way encapsulate all the various key parameters we have not taken the forward-looking parameters like say DSCR or this information, this assessment which we have done is based on typically the publicly available information. So should not be construed as akin to a credit rating which we do for utilities. So these were the 7 parameters on which we evaluated: demographic risk, operational efficiency, regulatory risk, government support, management of cost, which essentially captures the cost coverage and the trends of overhead expenses, leverage, working capital intensity, which captures the payables and receivable days, and the position of overdue creditors. I think this in a way captures all the issues in a utility, barring a few of them, which of course we as a credit rating agency do capture. Agni, next. So this is a kind of heat map which we have prepared. On these 7 odd parameters, we try to see each state along with all the utilities it has, how does it fare. And then green one obviously is a healthy, light green moderate, pink one needs improvement, and red one is the area of concern. So clearly Gujarat, it's clearly standouts. All the 4 utilities are pretty much comfortable in all aspects of power business. Maharashtra is also relatively doing good. They have some issues with respect to regulatory income or regulatory assets, and hence regulatory risk is a bit more for them. Working capital intensity, because of the overdue creditors recently in their books, which has been which has pulled their score a bit down. Haryana is a clear turnaround story, if I could use the word post-Uday, and they are pretty much comfortable in all the parameters. Leverage is one area because of the negative net worth, despite the conversion of loan for the Uday period, still the gearing remains negative because of the negative net worth. Punjab remains the number 4th. One important observation here is this: Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. These are perennial cases of weakness. Almost all the parameters they have been showing the areas of concern. So this particular chart pretty much encapsulates what we wanted to say in terms of the performance of each of these 12 states and these 30 discoms within them. Agni, next. Now I would like to brief CARE's outlook on FY21. Given the COVID times, we have seen the relatively lesser sales to industrial and commercial customers. It was pretty low during the lockdown, and it continues to be low because of the subdued industrial activity and commercial activity, which is going to affect the AT&C loss negatively, given the fact that these customers account for lowest AT&C losses. Vice versa, the higher sales to subsidized domestic category is expected to increase the subsidy dependence for the discoms in financial year 21 at least. Collection efficiency, we have our discussion with the majority of the discoms is collection efficiency has been low, and this has this would be impacting the subsidy of the distribution companies, and hence it would be a key monitorable for us. Relief from regulatory commission so far is expected to be low. Poor revenue due to lower sale to the higher revenue, higher tariff paying consumers has increased the power purchase cost per unit, and this is expected to have a bearing on the cost coverage for financial 21. So short term outlook for the sector continues to kind of ape the outlook for long term, because long term also sector has its own headwinds. It has accentuated by the COVID related restriction. So in terms of outlook, it continues to be negative for the sector for us. Next. A quick slide on rating dispersion and movements. In terms of discoms, including the distribution franchisee, we have around 24 outstanding ratings, and equally placed between investment and non-investment grade. The AA ratings, which you can see in this, 4 of them would be with the Gujarat entities. Largely, the investment would be, the portfolio would be BB and below. in terms of migration during the financial year 20, or rather trailing 12 months ended August, largely the ratings were reaffirmed, essentially because the performance was steady, the power was being is an essential commodity. Though there was initial hiccups, so far we have not seen very difficult situation for the DISCOMs. Liquidity crunches are there, but they have been managed in various other ways. Next. So with this, I think in terms of presentations, we are over. I would like to now invite Debal to take from here on the discussion with the esteemed panelists on various issues concerning the sector. Over to you, Debal.
Yeah, thanks Sudhir and Agni for the presentation. With those broad numbers and regarding both the yearly aggregate trends and the relative positioning of the DISCOMs, Sudhir and I would now try to gather some relevant insights from our esteemed experts. So since we are still grappling with the COVID pandemic, obviously my first question to both our guests would be in terms of the impact of the DISCOM, impact of the pandemic on the DISCOM finances, with the liquidity drying up, with the closure of the industrial and the commercial establishments, especially the paying consumers. Also, equally importantly, how adversely are the capex plans of the DISCOMs hit during this period, and how do you see the kind of long-term implication of that? So maybe Mr. Sinha, if we could start with you.
Thank you so much, Care, for inviting me on the forum. It's a very relevant concern as a DISCOM which we are facing today, because as you correctly put that the industrial and commercial consumers have gone down. Though the lockdown has been uplifted, but the momentum is still going to take pretty long time. It may be a few months, or it can even run over a period of 1 year, because wherever industries are there or commercial establishments are there, particularly in the commercial establishment, the footfall is very low. So in the first quarter, of course, there was a huge dip of almost 30% drop in the load which we serve, and accordingly the billing and collection also suffered. But later on there is a revival, but the revival is very, very slow. So obviously this has impacted our cash flows. The saving is only that since the demand was not there, to some extent the power purchase was also not there. But overall the cash flow has been impacted, and we have taken certain steps at our end in terms of how we can reduce our capital expenditure to the bare minimum, at least for this financial year. In spite of the challenges because of the COVID, the Delhi summer is supposed to be quite harsh. But this time we were able to survive. We went with the minimum investments. Even in the coming months, we have tried to see how we can reduce our capex requirement so that the loading can be minimum on the cash flows. We hope to, because it's nobody can predict what will happen, so we are kind of very, very watchful, and periodically we are reviewing how we can fine-tune our cash flows and our capex plan. We are looking at our operating expenses also, and wherever possible we are trying to defer it or try to reduce it. All those steps are there. And from the government side also, there has been a lot of supportive steps, like moratorium has been allowed on the loans. Similarly, there has been some deferment on the fixed charges by the power suppliers. So far we have been able to manage, but it's not something which will not suffer the in term, definitely short term and medium term there are suffering, but long term we really have to go forward and see how things shape up in the coming months as we go forward.
Yeah, right. Mr. Sen, your views on the same, the impact of the pandemic on the
Yeah.
finances and the capex plans.
Yeah, as Mr. Sinha rightly pointed out, electricity, again, all of us know, is a very, very different sector, and uh, I should say it is very undervalued and underrated sector. Without electricity, nobody can do anything. But still, there has not been, those kind of initiatives which should have come much earlier in this sector, and then we would not have faced these days of Uday and going forward.
Right.
For Gujarat, it has been a different story, but this COVID-19 pandemic has again impacted us very, very adversely. We are a highly industrialized state. So what happened is, our collections went down by almost 70-80% in the month of April, May. That was again because Gujarat government was one of the first governments in this country to declare relief measures to immediately to the consumers. As early as on 27th March, we had released a government GR saying that we are going to give these relief, especially to the industrial, small and the big industries across the state, as well as to the small shops and establishments. For all consumers, we gave a deferment plan to them to postpone their bill payments as mid of April. Mid of May. We first extended it up to 30th of April, and then we further extended it. We were able to do this. Primary, our reason was we had that financial strength with us where we could survive doing this for 2-3 months. Then we also wanted to be with our consumers to give them that support so that they can be back on their feet, because everybody of us on back of our mind, we used to realize ki either we take corona as a disease, or we or our economy goes down because of lockdown, and that has exactly happened that way. So now the poor across the country is they have come up, they have opened themselves up, they have they have not bothered about any lockdown, because it is a question of their livelihood.
Right.
So this has opened the economy. We have in Gujarat, we have seen the economy, the overall industrial consumption has been almost the same as nations. I'm not saying 100%, it is close to 90-95%. Depending on that has been. So when monsoon is good, it is the best thing which can happen to an electricity discom. Maybe not in the discoms who are servicing only to the city areas, but for discoms like us, it is a blessing in disguise. It is a very good thing which has happened. So it is always said ki God will not beat you on all grounds. He will try to give you some savior, and it has been one of such saviors. Industries coming back, we have seen the small scale industries also come back, pharmaceutical industries. So they have been working actually overtime to cater to the needs of the country. Yes, it has been very revenues come back, but most importantly, it has come back 85%. So that's a good sign. We also had to take some loans from banks and manage the working capital finances, but that again has cooled down. We are in a pretty comfortable position.
Specifically, Mr. Sen, what is your sense on the capex
Yeah,
going
anything
forward?
else?
Mr. Sen, Sudhir this side, specifically in terms of your capex plan, have they been
Capex,
curtailed significantly?
yeah.
Yeah.
There are two reasons behind,
Capex.
you know, a capex going down. The first reason is
Mr. Sen, can I request you if you
our
can,
own cash flow.
switch off
Second
your
is basically three reasons. Second is normally
Mr.
whenever
Sen,
discoms across the country do some capex, they carry out government. Hello.
So,
can
Mr.
you
Sen, there
switch
is
off
some.
your webcam? I think there's a bandwidth issue at your end. If you can switch off your webcam,
I think there is
I will hear you. Yeah,
your
please go ahead,
voice
Mr.
is
Sen.
not
Yeah, so I
coming.
think there is a bandwidth issue probably at your end.
Is
would
it okay?
be
Yeah. So I think there are some connectivity issues. The sound quality. Yeah. There is a bandwidth issue, but anyway, I think we can go
okay.
forward. So
Yeah, sure.
for capex, we are holding back some of the capex because government will also face a lot of issues in, you know, providing the normal support which they used to give for carrying their own. Plus, there is a big problem on the supplier side because they are also not in a position to supply as per our requirement. So naturally, capex, I think, will have to take a 6-month, hit. But still, for so far as efficiencies are concerned, we are trying to, do all those capex which builds in efficiencies, which, you know, helps us to do our job better.
Okay. Mr. Sen, my next question is to you only. This Electricity Amendment Bill 2020, which was recently asked for public opinion.
Yes.
So in that, one of the important proposal has been with respect to direct benefit transfer in the power discom space. So essentially, in that direction, how do you see this provision actually playing out? Would it actually be done? If it is to be done, would it be in the way it is there in petroleum sector? And do you think this is a game changer sort of proposal, which is there in draft Electricity Amendment Bill 2020?
Hello, Mr. Sudhir.
Did you heard me? Were you able to hear me, Mr. Sen? Mr. Sen, can you hear me?
Hello. I think the voice is not clear. I'm not able to hear you at all.
Okay. May I request you
Your question at all.
to switch off
But,
your webcam so that the bandwidth is, available for you. Please switch off your webcam.
Yes, Sudhir, he has already done it.
Okay,
fine.
Yes. Am I audible, Mr. Sen? Mr. Sen, am I audible?
Yeah. Now is it? Yeah, now
okay. What I was asking was
slightly better.
It's
what
okay.
I was asking was,
please.
Yeah, Deval, you want to?
No. I was saying that probably there's a lag in communication.
Yeah, now you.
So that's okay.
You
can
audible.
okay.
Tell me.
So they go ahead. Please.
Yes, so I was asking with respect to one of the proposals in Electricity Amendment Bill 2020, which pertains to direct benefit transfer of subsidy. How exactly do you think this is going to play out? Because the compulsions in your sector are pretty different from petroleum sector, wherein the consumer first pays for it and then the subsidy is given to him and he is charged full. So how DBT is going to be implemented in power distribution sector? That was my first question. And secondly, how do you actually see this? Is this going to be overhauling in the system, or it is going to be game changer kind of idea? How do you see direct benefit transfer of subsidy in power distribution space? Mr. Sen?
I think
Mr. Sen? I think till the time Mr. Sen is back, I think Mr. Sinha,
Yeah.
if you heard my question on DBT, what is your sense on a direct benefit transfer of subsidy in context of power distribution segment, and how it would be different from a petroleum segment where it is already in place in terms of gas cylinders and all?
No, according to my understanding and what I feel the policymakers are looking at would be something what we are doing in Delhi, where there is a subsidy policy which has been announced by the government, and which is very clear. And on the basis of the policy, subsidy policy directions, on a monthly basis, we pass on a credit, which is the subsidy amount, to the consumer bills. So consumer, when he receives the bill, it is net of the subsidy, and he has to pay the net amount. The subsidy credit which we have given, we collect from the government. So that is, there are provisions in the Electricity Act also, where under such circumstances the subsidy has to be given on a quarterly basis in advance. So this is, I think, the mode will most likely work out based on my understanding. The other method which you are suggesting, where it has to be a direct credit to the bank account, that looks a little difficult, because the operational challenges would be there in our sector in that context. And only the as far as game changer or not, that all depends, because in any way, whether you take the first route or the second route, we have to ensure that the subsidy amount is released by the government on time. In our situation, if the subsidy is recovered to us by us in advance, it is not a financial burden for the DISCOM, and everything is going on very smoothly. This is the way we have been operating for last so many years in Delhi, and I think this model should be preferred by the government.
Right. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think we don't have Mr. Sen again. So, hello, Mr.
Yeah,
Sen, have you joined me?
Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
there
Am I
is
audible?
there's still some disturbance, but yes, we can try again.
Good.
So Sudhir,
Hello,
you might,
am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You are audible, Mr. Sen. Mr. Sen, your sense on the proposal on direct benefit transfer of subsidy, which has come in Electricity Amendment Bill 2020. So, what is the juvenile or your sense on
Yeah,
how this is going to
actually I'm hardly able to hear the question, or in fact whatever Mr. Sinha told, I was hardly able to hear.
Okay. Okay. So should I repeat the question? I think
he's not able to hear.
okay.
So I guess we will still go ahead with
direct
Yes, please.
see, on direct benefit transfer, it be very difficult because hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes,
you are audible, Mr. Sen.
Hello, am I audible? See,
Yes.
on the direct benefit transfer, government, on direct benefit transfer for the government, to transfer the agriculture subsidy to directly to the farmers is a very different ball game than what we see today in the perhaps in the petroleum sector. For it is not going to be that easy for for the same to get implemented across the electricity. Today the is being owned by the and government can take a choice and can take a view that they can transfer this year or next year, depending on their finances. But when it will come for directly transferring the funds to the farmers, I don't think they will have that option. Otherwise, so there are a lot of thought process. It is not going to be easily implement. Rather, I would say government will have to take up if they want to propose in this way. For very good proposal, because they will be absolved of the responsibility to bear the subsidy. For Gujarat, most goes in agriculture. In fact, it goes as high as 55% in poor monsoon days. So for any distribution utility in the country, it is a very good proposal. But whether it can be done, because lot of finances will have to be shelled out by government, and especially in these difficult days, I don't see it is very practically implementable as of now.
Right.
So
Thanks.
am I okay? The voice is
Yeah,
okay?
Yes,
Yes, we heard you. So maybe, so Mr. Sinha,
Yeah.
I want to come to you now. Basically,
Right.
the other kind of elephant in the room is the need for privatization that probably everybody kind of discussing, and different models are being suggested, including obviously outright privatization, something like announced by the finance minister for the UTs, Union Territories, or also the concept of distribution sublicense, which has been kind of embedded in the the draft electricity amendment bill. Also, some people are talking about an outsourcing model where the private entity might be providing the improved technology or consumer-related services in an improved manner without really taking on the ownership risk. So, since you helm one of the prominent private discoms in the country, I would like to hear your views regarding the privatization of the sector in general, and the possible modes that we could probably see in the near future.
Mr. Sinha, before you answer this question, I think related questions have been raised by a few of our participants. Mr. Abhijit Datta, he says that Atmanirbhar package has proposed privatization of discoms. How pragmatic is the suggestion, keeping in mind the political compulsion? And one more of the participant, Mr. Namdev Shileke, he has said that how do you see privatization of discom taking place in coming years? Is it going to happen in a big way, or is privatization of discom the solution in the first place? So a lot of participants have questions with respect to privatization. You being one of the biggest what you say, if I may use the word, beneficiary of privatization. So how do you see this as the, is this the panacea of all ills, or this also has its role to play in some specific areas and not all? So please, Mr. Sinha.
See, I mean, one has to understand the perspective in which we operate a distribution company. The distribution company will be successful and will be benchmarked by achieving certain parameters, and which we have discussed in your presentation regarding the AT&C losses and providing 24/7 power supply, level of consumer services which can be provided. So any discom, whether it is private or public, if they are able to meet these expectations, then it can be a successful model. Now, the expectation of the private sector is that because there is more independence in decision making and in the processes are more robust in their operations, so their capability to do operational excellence is higher. But overall, any model would succeed only when you have got the overall ecosystem aligned for success. So for even private sector, the sector would require a regulatory certainty, which is very, very critical because the entire sector is regulated. The DISCOMs would also require availability of financial support from the sector, from the government and from various other sources. So these things, once you talk about privatization, the government should not do any discrimination between private or a public sector DISCOM or a state DISCOM, because the business model is the same, whether it is a private sector or a public sector. It operates within the ambit of the regulatory authorities. It works under the Electricity Act. It works under a business model which provides certain returns, but it also requires certain target performances. So it is generally felt that private DISCOMs can be made more accountable. The performance can see better improvement. So that is why this privatization is being talked about. Of course, in Delhi, it has proved to be a success. We have been able to bring the losses to less than 10% as far as AT&C is concerned. We provide 24/7. But then there are limitations, like long-term PPAs is a constraint, because now if you have to optimize your power purchase cost, which is 80% of the cost, and you need to give an affordable tariff or a cheap tariff, so there, hands are tight. You can't do much about long-term power purchase contracts. New avenues are coming with renewables, and other challenges are coming at the field, where a lot of investment is required to reduce the losses or even to maintain the losses at that level, like electric vehicles which are coming, which will require a lot of investment if you have to actually manage the load, and if the tariff is not conducive in regulating the charging infrastructure, so that you can charge in off-peak time and you don't charge it peak time. So there are a lot of dynamics. So what I'm saying basically is that whether it is private or state DISCOMs, obviously private has certain advantage in terms of decision making and in terms of accountability on operational performance, which according to me is on a higher level. But the entire ecosystem has to be conducive, and there I think the new Electricity Act, which is being amended, a new tariff policy which is coming, is a step in that direction, which is trying to correct the ecosystem, as Mr. Sen pointed out also, that why we are looking in after 70 years of independence. This could have been done maybe 50 years back. But anyway, at least today the government is looking into these options, that first how we can make the Electricity Act more true and current to the times, how we can have a very tariff policy which is more conducive to the current requirements. There are significant changes also being proposed in setting up the more stronger regulatory commission at the state level in terms of number of people in the commission or their appointments, so that more independence is there. There are some this sector is also suffering with a lot of litigations. So there are certain steps which is being proposed to manage litigation in a better way, whether it is commercial litigation or legal litigation. So what I'm trying to say, that a proper ecosystem is being created, and with that the privatization is also being proposed to start with union territories, and I think it will follow with other states. So because it's not wish list that any private sector would come into this sector on, because they would know what are the risks associated. So if a proper ecosystem is there, if there is policy alignment, if the center and state talk in a similar way with a common objective, definitely private sector participation would improve. I think privatization should be seen as a positive step, and the policymakers and the regulators and all the stakeholders have to sit together to make the sector more successful, because distribution and yes.
Mr. Sinha, one related question which has come from Suresh Venkat among the attendees. His point is that what is your view on the likely success if you outsource the operation instead of fully privatizing? Would this be a remedy in the context of giving complexity on ground? So instead of full-scale privatization, only outsourcing the small part of it. Though in Discom franchisee space this is there, but we have not seen very wide-scale adoption of that among the distribution licensees or state governments.
See, what my personal view is that the accountability and the ownership is more there when you have a full license arrangement or a sub-license arrangement, which is proposed in the new form of distribution franchise. Pure contract becomes only a contract, because then you are only looking at the specific task which you have to do. The distribution franchise could not do so much because it was purely a contractual arrangement, where in this sector the role of the regulator is very important, the role of the state government is very important. So every whether it is a Discom or the contractor or the distribution franchise or the regulator, they have to have a common objective and everyone has to support each other, then only it will be successful. Contractual arrangements are mere performance of certain obligation in the contract. So to that extent, it has not proved very successful, particularly in this sector. There can be small time contractual arrangements, like I am finding a particular area which is very difficult to crack because of the losses and all. So you can give some arrangement with a contractor or franchise arrangement to reduce the losses, who have more ways of doing it in that particular area. But for an entire city or an entire town, I think some kind of sub-license arrangement would be better, because license comes with certain obligations also, which are kind of onerous on all the stakeholders to perform.
Okay. Thanks for that perspective, Mr. Sinha. Mr. Sen, the next set of questions which our attendees have raised are for you. Can you hear us, Mr. Sen? You are on mute, Mr. Sen. Mr. Shubhadeep Sen? You are on mute. Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. Yes, one question which has come from Dinesh Kadam of ICICI Bank for GUVNL. He's asking what is GUVNL doing differently to reduce the gap between ACS and ARR? That is one question which has come directly for GUVNL, and one more question which has come for GUVNL is, given the difficult COVID times and Government of India call on smart metering, how do they see smart metering actually playing out in these difficult times of COVID? Do you still would like to go with it, or how would that be? So two specific questions for GUVNL, Mr. Sen. Mr. Sen? Mr. Sen, we cannot hear you.
Have a poor, there are many video conferences being done in our offices, so maybe the bandwidth is falling short.
Now you are audible. Please go ahead.
So anyway, I could just hear you loud. Some question on ACS ARR.
Yes. How are you reducing the gap
Right?
differently from others?
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
I can
Hello.
hear you.
The conferences go, it is very poor. Could only hear about ACS ARR.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
No, there is no gap for at all since last 16 years. There has been no gap in the ACS ARR. We are surplus. We are a surplus state.
No, that is the question.
So
What are
everywhere
you doing?
the monitored and they have been quite in line. Last
Sen,
year
the
it
question
was
is
almost 10 to 11 paisa. So we are expecting in 1920 it would improve.
Mr. Sen, the question was different. That what you do differently to reduce the gap between ACS and ARR. We know that you are profitable for past some time, but what essentially you do differently from others? That was the question. I think there are still some issues. So I think I will move on to my next question, which was for both the participants. Since Mr. Sen would take some time, I think Mr. Sinha, the heavy lifting.
Sorry, your voice is not audible. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sir, did you heard my? Okay, I will just change the question. Uh, the solar tariffs have been reducing for quite some time. They continue to do so. Secondly, we have seen recently the integrated solar RTC bids coming up for the first time, and at the same time, the discoms continue to have a fixed portion of thermal power supply, which long-term PPAs, for which they have to buy the power in case the PEF is there. So both these things together, how do you see to optimize the power purchase cost? Because on one hand, your this long-term PPAs continues to be there, and on the other hand, this reducing solar bids and round-the-clock supply from solar developers. So how do you see the optimization of power purchase cost happening? Mr. Sinha, I think you may answer this first, and then we will move to Mr. Sen.
See, renewable is a huge opportunity for optimization of cost. Like in BSCS Rajdhani, we have tied up about 1200 megawatt of renewable power, and that's a huge portfolio, and it will change the mix. It will almost take to almost 25% of the total portfolio we have long term in the coming years. So that will give you some headroom for optimization of cost, because the average buying rate is less than 3 rupees as compared to my long-term power purchase cost, which is aggregating to almost 4.5 to 4 rupees 75 paisa. So in that way, the optimization can be done. The question which you are raising is what we do with the long-term power purchase cost.
Right.
Now, we have been taking it, pursuing with the government and both at the state and central government, where some of the costly plants can be reallocated to other locations or other states, It's recently we were able to do for Badarpur. We are also trying for Dadri 1, which is a relatively costly plant. It is the useful life is going to end sometime in November this year. So this is more of a advocacy issue which we are trying to do, and the state government is also supporting. But there are challenges. I mean, if this opportunity is not there to surrender, the only way we can do is to operate at the technical minimum, which is currently at 55%. And the fixed cost burden will, to that extent, would be there. We have been looking into complete backdown also when it is possible, keeping in view the opportunities of buying from other sources. Now, I think this question which you are raising is very much in the minds of the government also, both at the state and center, that what should be done, because to be fair, these long-term PPA contracts are ranging almost 25 years, and they are backed by bank financing, and it may not be commercial, prudent, or fair also that you disband those contracts at their own will. So the power generators are also looking into option. One of the option which one of the big generating companies is looking into, how they can kind of do a mix of solar and wind with their costly power plants, which is one option, which because in any case they are going to expand, and no more they are going to expand in thermal generation. So if they can work out a model in which they can generate solar and wind, or even some other storage capacity, and tie up with their traditional power, and give a rate which is more conducive, and which is more cost reflective, which is more cost efficient. So that options is also being looked particularly by organizations like NTPC and others. They are also trying to mix with hydro, which is a fairly cheaper power. So it is also from the generator side that they have to look into these innovations, in which because they also understand this reality, that going forward it will be very, very difficult if they take a stand that we can't do anything. They have to find a solution. So in that respect, I think there is enough awareness at the stakeholders level, particularly at the central government level, and definitely some solutions would come. Meanwhile, as I said, we are trying to see how best we can optimize the mix of the long term and the short term, and also to what extent we can operate at technical minimum, whatever we can back down. Those all options are being explored, because with real-time markets which is coming, or the green market which is coming, and so these opportunities are going to be there. One can also think of one nation, one tariff kind of thing, say for generators, because different states have different plants and allocation, and different rates are allocated, where some states are being paid, being charged higher, and some states are lower. So all these options are there, and government is looking and reviewing all these options. I think collectively a solution would come in months and years to come.
Mr. Sinha, this new power market regulation amendment, which would result in development of power trading market, is it in a way substitute for absence of long-term PPA? This question is raised by Dinesh Kadam, again from the attendee side. So any sense on that?
No, theoretically yes. It if power is easily accessible and available at any point of time, but there would be, it will take some time, even if we have to go to that level, because there is a base load requirement which is always there, and which is always better if we have long-term contracts, because ultimately we are committed to 24/7 supply, and it is always better that you have, as you know, in a stock market you have debt, you have equity, you divide your risk. So accordingly, in power sector also we'll have to have a mix where you can have certain power which is through long-term contracts, maybe through conventional, and some green power, some through RTM and other mechanism. At this point of time, I think it's early to think about it, but these things will happen in the years to come, particularly with the emergence and the integration of higher level of renewables, and more so distributed energy power which is being generated. Like in Delhi, we have got about almost 70 megawatt of distributed energy power which we have created through rooftop solar plants. So as the potential is almost 500 megawatt in Delhi. So as these things improve, there would be local generation also. So dependence of long-term contracts will go. But at this point of time, it will be early to say this, that we can do it in say in a very recent time. It will take some more time, but eventually things can go that way.
Okay. I think we have pretty overshot our timelines. So I think Deval would have some final questions for our panelist. Deval?
Yeah, so maybe we are nearing the end. So to summarize, probably from both of you experts, we would like to know what are the 2 or 3 key imperatives that you think you are looking at as essential for the DISCOM sector going forward. Maybe we could start with Mr. Sen. Mr. Sen, could you hear my question? Mr. Sen?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible now.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think the tagline for the electricity sector would be the cost reflective tariff.
Okay.
The tariff needs to reflect, the tariff which you charge to the consumer needs to reflect the cost of the DISCOMs. No doubt DISCOMs need to slowly bring in efficiency in their operations, and that is for the regulator to look into their books, look into their operations, and decide a tariff and let the DISCOMs charge the tariff to the consumers. It is very difficult for a private company to charge the same, to ensure many steps which a government sector is not able to do. Gujarat is an example where government has shown, given the independent, the government as good as the private sector. So it is not the question of bringing privatizing a company. It is more of allowing the government to function, the government company to function as a commercial organization. We will not debate on private or public concept. It is, you have to allow, when you have made a company from an electricity board, when you have allowed that conversion, please allow that conversion of mindset to happen in the country and let the organizations survive commercially. 2003 Act has given lot of powers to everybody to enforce what you want to do. If that enforcement is never done, you may see many electricity acts come and go. The picture is going to remain the same. Just to answer my earlier question, Gujarat has been allowed to do this, and that has been the key to the success story. Distribution companies have been able to charge cost reflective tariff. They have been able to do the capex. They have been able to convince government to lend the support as and when required. Government has also done their best when the restructuring happened, they gave all the distribution companies a clean balance sheets to start with, so that they can survive in the long run. And that has been the exactly the story. 15-16 years now down the line, we have seen our consistent performance, which have added to the profitability, which have added to the efficiency, and which has helped us to collect efficiently. Our if you see our technical losses, distribution losses are also at the lowest levels, except for PGVSL. PGVSL, there is lot of work to be still done, because PGVSL is one of our largest discom. In fact, the size of PGVSL is more than cumulative of all the 3 discoms put together for us. So a lot of work has to be done there. It is also the most potentially happening discom for us. But apart from that, we have done pretty well. We have been able to collect almost everything what we bill, and we have been very strict on the billing cycles. We have tried to use GPRS, online billings, AMRs, to improve our billing processes. We are also looking at smart meter. We did a pilot, but we have certain reservations in that, because we are one of the discoms which does spot billing beautifully. So the meter reader goes, serves the bill then and there. It's lot of time. It builds in your cash flow efficiency, and that's how that has been one of the key success stories. Spot billing. We should not discount this. This is a very important thing since so many years. So all these things have helped us, but government should, I would rather put it this way, Reserve Bank of India should city as a, I don't know if anybody has given a thought to it. Without electricity, you cannot even sell a flat in your Marine Drive also. Can you do that? No, we cannot do it. So we need, somehow we need to understand the importance of electricity. If you see during this corona crisis, I think electricity has played a wonderful role. I don't know, we have doctors, healthcare workers, and everybody who have contributed, but we have not appreciated the hard working people across the electricity sector in our country. Those are locked down with no electricity outside. Think of those days. So it is very difficult. So let us appreciate this sector, very different sector. We need lot of help. Comes better. Atmanirbhar package, Uday, they have been, they have been, bandages on the injuries. They have not been, they have not been those art of living classes, where you have actually discovered yourself in a very different way. That has not been the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sen. I think this time we heard you quite well. I guess some of the other conferences you must have stopped in your office. So, Mr. Sinha, probably the last word from you regarding the 2 or 3 key imperatives that you see for the discom sector going forward.
See, purely from a distribution point of view, we are also assured return business as the Maharatnas operating in the generation and the transmission sector. But the plight is, everyone's knowledge what distribution sector is facing. So it is very clearly understood that the focus which has been there on generation and transmission has not been there at the discom level. Of course, in the last few years, there has been a conscious effort to revive the distribution, but over the years, distribution companies have suffered for various reasons, because they are the front ending the entire power sector. So there are social political compulsions at the state level where some compromises may have to be done. But on a very broad scale, as has been pointed out earlier also, one important thing, this is a regulated sector, so regulatory transparency and certainty and independence, this is the key thing. As long as regulatory system and process work well, the sector will be supported. As far as possible, litigation in the sector should be controlled, and so that the focus is more on the core activities. The other is the financial availability of finance for the sector, distribution sector, not only as a package for relief, but for your core activities like capital expenditure and working capital financing has to be there. Because the sector is stressed, so the banking sector is kind of not very comfortable with the sector, which needs to be looked into what can be done so that the banking support comes to the distribution company requirements. And similarly, I even CARE as a rating agency or any rating agency, they have to, while evaluation of rating, they have to see the peculiar challenges of the sector, and it probably the rating has to be aligned with the challenges of the sector independently than kind of a general rating structure. And of course, at the operating level, there would be there on a day-to-day basis, lot of support is required by the local administration, the police, the government, so that you are able to operate in a workable and a congenial environment where you get good support, because the loss reduction is not so easy. Some of the areas and some of the pockets are really tough, where the DISCOM people have to go and there is a threat of their life, and there are big challenges at the field level. So that kind of support is required for the DISCOM to operate. And of course, as Mr. Sen was saying, that there should be recognition, particularly in this Corona times and pandemic times. We have been working 24/7. My entire network team has been operating. So that kind of appreciation should also come to the sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. With that, we come to the end of the webinar. We are really thankful to our esteemed guest panelists for today for sparing their time today and enlightening us with their immense knowledge on the sector. And many thanks to all the participants who have attended the webinar. CARE, of course, comes up with such webinars for our various sectors, and we hope that you keep participating in them as well. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, and thank you, and sorry for the bandwidth issues. I am sorry.
Not a problem.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.